Hello everyone, this is Chad Miller, part of the CAD Geek team at Tata Technologies. Today I'm going to help you get started with 3ds Max by showing you the basics of the user interface and going through some viewport navigation. This video is part of an ongoing series by Tata Technologies, the premier Autodesk partner. Follow us at autodesk.cadgeekspeak.com or write to us at autodesk@tatatechnologies.com. When we start 3ds Max, we're going to be greeted by this welcome screen. It's going to offer us some tutorial videos that we can check out, most of which are pretty good. We can start a new scene from this button on the right side. We can open an existing file, and it also gives us a list of recent files, and we can look through and have easy access to things that we've worked on recently. If you get tired of seeing this screen upon startup, all we have to do is check the box in the lower left-hand corner and click Close. We'll quickly go through some of the basic parts of the interface. Up at the top, as in most other applications, we have our menu bar. The most interesting part about this is the quick access bar up here in the upper left-hand corner. It gives us easy access to some of the more commonly used functions from the menu bar, notably new scene, open, save, undo, and redo. Underneath that, we're going to have our main toolbar, and that's where most of our most commonly used commands can be found. To the right of that is our layers toolbar, and only those two toolbars are turned on by default. To see that, we can right click an empty space to the right of them, and we can see that in addition to the command panel, the main toolbar and layers have check marks next to them. If we want to turn on additional layers, we can do that here. We can turn on the Mass Effects toolbar, and it docks it up here to the right of the Layers toolbar. If we don't want that there, we can undock it, just as we can with any of the other toolbars. And to put them back, all we have to do is drag them back up. If we don't want one anymore, we can either close it out this way, or we can uncheck it from the box there. I'll turn layers back on because that's an essential one. Next, we have our command panel on the right side of the screen, and this is where most of our work in 3ds Max is going to be done. This includes our standard primitive creation tools, our lights, our cameras, any kind of systems and helpers that we might put in there, space warps that we use for things like wind and gravity. Also at the top, we have buttons for modification, our hierarchy, motion in the scene, our display settings, and some additional utilities. At the bottom of the screen, we have our animation timeline. If we scrub through that right now, we don't see anything happening in the scene because we don't have any geometry or any animations. And to the right of that, we have our playback controls for our animation. We'll get to more of that in a later video. In the bottom right of the screen, we have our viewport controls. And before we start to look into these, I want to open up a file so we have some geometry to look at and make this easier to visualize. I'm just going to open a scene from one of the built-in 3ds Max tutorials that is halfway completed. And we can see that it switched to a single viewport. If I want to see the default 4 views instead of this view, I can either click the Maximize Viewport toggle button in the far right-hand bottom corner of the screen, or I can also use a very handy keyboard shortcut, Alt-W. That will change between maximizing the selected view and letting us see our 4 views. I can resize any of these views by clicking and dragging in the center of the screen, the intersection between these views. I'll reset that back to normal. Right now we have a top view in the upper left quadrant, we have a left view in the bottom left one, and we have two orthographic views on the right side. I don't see a front view here, so in this second orthographic view I'm going to click on the viewport label in the top left corner of the viewport and select front from the list of views. It's going to give me a front view rather, but we can't really see most of the geometry in any of these views. So I'm going to make sure I don't have anything selected, and then I'm going to use another one of these buttons in the viewport controls, Zoom Extents All. That's going to show me all of the geometry, all the objects in the scene actually, in all of the viewports. You may have noticed that the visualization for this geometry is different in the different views that we have here. In the front view, for instance, this twisty building is in a realistic view, or as realistic as it's going to get view. And in a view like the top, we have a wireframe view. We can change that with the viewport labels as well. Up in the top left corner, right now it says wireframe next to top, and if I left click on wireframe, I have a list that comes up, lets me choose between hidden line, between the wireframe view that we already saw, between a shaded view, and between a realistic view such as the one that we have in the front view right now. I'm going to go back to that front view and show you one more thing. If I click on that label, I can turn on edged faces. That's just a toggle, an on and off toggle that works with a couple of the other visualizations, and that shows us the edges of our segments in our geometry. Sometimes that's helpful to have on. I'm going to turn it off for now. I'm also going to go down to this left view and turn that on realistic, just so they're all on the same view and things are easier to visualize. Finally, let's navigate around our views. I'm going to select the orthographic view by right-clicking on it, and in my viewport controls box in the bottom right corner of the screen, I'm going to select the hand, which is the pan view button. And if I go back up to the view, left-click and drag, that allows me to pan around in my orthographic view. I can achieve the same effect by clicking and holding the middle mouse button, which is the more commonly used shortcut for the pan command. I can also orbit with the orbit button. But that's not quite as useful as simply holding down the Alt button on the keyboard and then holding down the middle mouse button and orbiting that way. Since nothing is selected at the moment, we're orbiting around the entire scene. If I would like to just orbit around a single object, I'll click on the twisty building and I will Alt and middle mouse button to orbit around that. I can do the same thing for our other object here. If I go back down to the viewport controls and select the zoom button, I can click and drag to zoom in and out, which is also achieved by the scroll wheel on the mouse. If I want a little better control of what I'm zooming in on, I can use the zoom region button and draw a window somewhere. Let's just look at the top floor of the building. We can do that. And we'll zoom extents all again just to see the entire scene. If I start orbiting around in any of the other views, a top view for instance, it's of course going to change that to an orthographic view rather than a top view, and the label is going to reflect that. If we don't want the orthographic view anymore, we can just click the label, select top, and zoom extents. In this case, we're zoom extents just on the object that we selected. If I don't have anything selected, zoom extents shows us the entire scene in the top view. I hope this is helpful as you begin working with 3ds Max, and I hope you'll join me next time as we get into some more advanced topics. Once again, this is Chad Miller for the Tata Technologies CAD Geeks blog. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. And if you're interested, check out some of our other videos. Thanks for watching.